why we're talking to you today.
Thank you.
Look, our sport requires, we're pretty much year round. These kids stop for very long and stuff begins to happen. So timing is something you can lose very quickly in our sport. And so it seems like it's a long way away, but you'd be shocked how quickly it goes by and how a lot of times, we'll get 3-4 weeks in and we realize, or we feel like we're behind where we want to be and projecting where we want to be. We've got to be ready about, 2 weeks before we go home for Thanksgiving, because what happens is that you get those interruptions and you got finals and you got the Christmas break, and then we come back and we really get six days before we compete. So it's kind of a grind right now, and today just kind of marks. It's exciting today, and in a couple of weeks they'll be hurting a little bit, and things can get a little mundane. They get tired of the routine, but today's fun.
What does this team feel like to you?
What does it feel like to me?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously super seniors are gone.
Yeah, I think sometimes what looks good on paper can introduce dynamics that you don't anticipate. I think this team's hungry. I think this team has some leaders that have been kind of chomping at the bit to assume that role for a couple of years, and what we've seen over the summer and the off season, and we've already returned in a much better place than we were this time last year from a physical perspective, and in terms of their strength and the level of participation of people over the summer. A lot more have come back in a really good place. So I think the team's hungry. I think it really left a bad taste in all of our mouths, the way the kind of things exploded on us there at the end. And we understand what the expectations are for ourselves, and we also understand what we're capable of. And what we're capable of is being in the hunt for this thing year over year, and that's I think that's where this team is from a mental standpoint. They're walking different, they're talking different, they're sound, everything. The signs are there. Now, I told them when we did our retreat, look, right now you're motivated. Right now you're at the height of your level of motivation and your desire to win. What's it going to look like when we get into October and November? Are you going to have that same desire? Are you guys going to hold each other accountable and to that standard that we're trying to set right now? So time will tell, but I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing and hearing.
We talked to Patty just about the mental toughness, kind of developing that and where you're going to get it from. And she said that somewhat of what you just said, girls holding each other accountable. It's hard to see it now, but I mean, like you said, you see, like you kind of alluded to it. It's time for some girls that have won that opportunity to seize it. Yeah, it's time for growth. It's time for people that have always had the potential and had the platform to lead, to do it, and to do so not just in the way they go about their business, but in upholding the standard and making sure that everybody understands what's expected and what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable in terms of effort level, in terms of the way we conduct ourselves in the classroom and in our social lives and in everything that we do. We've got to uphold a standard that is uncompromising. There have got to be non-negotiables if you want to be successful as a team.
You talk about Kaya and being more vocal.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it yet?
Yes, already. In the few meetings we've had with them in our team advance, we don't call it a retreat anymore. It's an advance because it's about leadership and those things. Saw her speak a lot more vocally and a lot more forcefully than what she has done in the past. And some of that is just feeling like it's your turn. I think you're not wanting to step on toes when you got people that have come before you, and then when they stuck around another year, how does that dynamic work? And while we tried to talk our way through it, I'm not sure that it always operated as smoothly as we would have liked. And so I think there's no excuses now. It's time for us to act the part.
I know it's early and it's first day of practice, but do you see signs of, hey, we're going to be a really, no issues with vault, or going to be a beam team?
I think we're really deep and talented on 3 events. I think bars is probably where if we're thin anywhere, that would be it. Losing Sammy Durante, you just don't know what's going to replace that yet. That's going to have to come from a freshman, or it's going to have to come from Aaliyah Fenning. It's going to have to come somewhere we have not seen yet, and so I'm not real sure what that looks like just yet. I don't think we're bad on bars. Don't misunderstand. I don't think that we're not competitive at a very high level on bars. I just don't know what that overall depth is going to look like in time.
Are you like baseball at all or softball? Where maybe are you limited to a certain number of practice days in the fall?
Well, we have a 144-day calendar that starts from regionals and goes back, or starts from the end of the season, which is after SECs, and goes back to now. And so we have to build in a certain number of off days. They have to have one a week. We have to have 14 additional mandatory off days within that time frame. So we have to get kind of creative, and it really it's kind of the same every year, but it can be nuanced in terms of our holiday breaks and those kinds of things.
Your expectations for the transfer coming in?
I think she's going to be great. She's already assimilated herself incredibly well. Cammie is just a wonderful human being. She's got a incredibly jovial and bubbly personality. She acts like she's known these guys for 20 years and has really just been a joy to be around. My expectation for her is that she comes in and vaults and does what we'd seen her do at her previous institution, and be able to add some more depth there. It's another 10-0 vault, and we've got a lot of potential for some really good vaults this year, and I think it'll be a strong point for us.
How many gyms this year?
19 total on the team.
That's not much less than last year.
21 last year, so you lose when you take one transfer in, and it just, I don't know the math, but it. Yeah.
I was told there would be no math.
I was told there would be no math. Yeah.
How many performances did you lose up last year?
I think it was 7 routines from the postseason. So it's certainly not an overwhelming number, but some of them were quality routines. Now at the end, some of them weren't quality, but over time, over the course of their time here, they were quality routines. They were 9-9 type routines, and that's always the big question: can you replace them at the same level that you lost or better? And so we got some good routines in these freshmen that are coming in, and I think I think we'll be able to do it. We also had some depth last year that didn't get used a lot, that maybe it's time for them to get an opportunity too. So we'll see where that lands.
Pretty healthy?
Right now, yeah. Right now we're you're as healthy as you can be. Little things, people getting back in the gym, they're sore. They may have strained to something here and there because they didn't do anything all summer long, and if they did that, well, that's kind of what you get. But it is it's a much better starting point right now than we were in last year.
No one sitting out and like, they had surgery and they have to miss a lot of time.
Kai Rivers is, that was much advertised last year with the torn rotator cuff, and she's still in the rehab mode. We probably won't get her released sometime until late October. My hope is to get her ready on balance beam first. If we get anything after that, that'll just be icing on the cake, gravy, lagniappe, as we say.
How do you see this? Is it going to be a couple of girls really, competing in the all-around, or is it going to be spread out routines?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know who the usual offenders are. It's Haley and Kaya and Alona. As they go, so we go right now, and I'd like to see some others be able to get into that mix. I think Bryce Wilson can get in that mix a little bit as a freshman. We'll see how her consistency is and those kinds of things. I think that you'll see Annie Beard, on 3 events. She had a shoulder situation over the last year that probably will preclude her from being relevant on bars this year, out of caution. But I think those big 3, which was a lot of our scoring power last year, they're back, and they're hungry, and they're angry, and they're all the things you want to see coming out of last year. So I think that'll be sort of the core of the ones that do the all around. Elena Arenas can do the all around too, if needed to.
And the UCLA transfer from last year, she didn't perform, did she?
No, we used her in exhibition once at TWU. There was a lot of stuff around that, and she needed to come in and earn it, and didn't show up in a place to where she was really relevant right out of the gate. She's in a much better place physically, and will be much more relevant this year.
Because the ceiling on her is.
Yeah, she can do the all-around for us. Yeah, I think she can do the all-around for us. But the ones you guys are going to be drawn to the most are the ones you already know about.
Managing loads, I mean, I think you talked about that more last year than I remember in the past. Is it still a thing? Especially because
Yeah, I mean, with Kaya, it's always a thing, just because that Achilles is still what it is, and it's going to be that way. It's not going to change, and it's something we've just got to watch. The only difference is this year is that in the past we tried to get her ready, and we had a target date for her to do floor in the middle of the season. This year we open at Utah and we come home. Our first meets at against Oklahoma, so the strategy changes a little bit there. You don't want Kaya Johnson not present in those meets. So we may get her ready, not in a different way. We'll leave her on the softer surfaces because she's already shown us that she can transition pretty quickly because she's such a great athlete that the timing doesn't become much of a problem for her. So I think we can protect her, but also get her ready for the first part of the season, and then find somewhere in the middle where we can pull back on her a little bit. And that the responsibility for being able to do that lies in these other kids that we're talking about being ready and being able to go in, and so that we don't see a big drop.
Got time for one more. She'll have one.
Any changes in your staff has stayed the same? Any changes in what y'all do?
Yeah. Well, the beauty of this year is that our staff stayed the same, and that hadn't happened since I got here, since I took over. So we've had a spring where we could go and plan and talk about some new ideas if there's some things we needed to inject into the program. I think more than anything, we're post-COVID. We're post me having, this time last year I was in the bed for near a month with COVID, and that we had lots of transition, bringing new coaches in and all sorts of things. I think there's a much more stable situation. I feel good about the direction of what we're trying to do. More than anything, it's a reset and getting the culture back to it was, internally 2 or 3 years ago, and creating just a greater level of accountability. And we had a tendency to let things sometimes, as a result of COVID and all the policies we were having to live under that seemed so draconian at the time, we kind of let them slide on some other things in order to, make life livable, so to speak. And so I think it's back to normal, and I think we'll see a greater level of discipline and everything throughout the program.